Welcome back, team, and welcome Councillor Gareth Thompson and also Glenn online, I presume. So thank you and good afternoon, and thank you for coming to present your submission to the panel.
Thank you, Chair. Kia ora koutou. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gareth Thompson and I'm Chair of our Strategic Growth Committee, and we'll be presenting on a submission today. I will take it as read, and I'm just going to highlight around 3 key points today. Firstly, though, I would say that we endorse the 5 key focus areas and much of what is in the RLTP. But in terms of the key influencing strategies and documents, we note that the future-proof strategy is that the document is, the RLTP is fairly silent on that, and we would like to see that emphasised as a key influencing strategy for the RLTP. The future-proof strategy links together the land use with the transport, and we think that's a really important link, and it is something that, that link between land use and transport is something that is emphasised in the RLTP, but that the future-proof strategy currently is missing. Secondly, in terms of the Metro Spatial Plan work, we'd like to emphasise the importance of building towards the Metro Spatial Plan and that future network. So we'd like to see wording stronger around that, because while there's this larger vision of things like bus rapid transit, actually, there's a lot of steps to take to get there. And a lot of that work is around the low cost, low risk stuff. So just making minor improvements to begin with to the public transport network, improving frequency, working together with the territorial authorities, Hamilton City Council and the Regional Council around improving those frequencies and taking gradual steps. And so those smaller projects are actually really significant in terms of building towards the larger vision. So would like to emphasise the need to build towards that in incremental steps. And also, while we understand better what we need to implement the Metro Spatial Plan, the funding challenges still remain and are possibly even more challenging at the moment in this current climate. So we also need to emphasise the need to be tackling that challenge around funding the implementation of that plan. Finally, the final point is around engagement and communication. We can't expect our residents, the public, to be championing the work that we're doing towards a low carbon, better functioning transport system if they don't even understand what the vision is. And so we really need to be focusing on that communication with the public to bring people along on that journey with us and to engage them on that journey. So there's work happening already to some extent, but we believe that's a really key part of success. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does Glenn want to add anything on, Glenn?
No, thank you. There's a great summation. Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Lynn? Yep.
One, if I may, and I'm going to apologise to the rest of the committee if this is getting a bit boring, but I really want to get a read from some key players, and I regard Hamilton City Council as a key player in this. Sarah, I'd like to ask your feeling about about speed limits, and whether the speed limits should be determined locally or from Wellington.
Thank you, Mayor Lynn. I'm a strong supporter of localism, and the local bodies and the staff and the elected members here understand the communities best, and so I support councils being free to make their own decisions in terms of speed limits. But our council has supported the rollout of the 30Ks outside of the schools. So that was something I think that was actually already indicated in our own speed management plan. So it hasn't, I don't believe that it's really changed a lot for us. Glenn might be able to comment on that, but yeah, I think generally we support local decision making, and often that theme comes through in our submissions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, thank you, Councillor and Glenn, for presenting your submission today.
Thank
Thanks
you
for the
very much.
opportunity.
Thanks.
Okay, our next presenter is online, and it's Councillor Carolyn from the Waikato DC. Good afternoon, Carolyn. Can you hear us? Did before touch base with you.
So just unclicking on mute, apologies for that. Alright, good afternoon. At the risk of stating the obvious, I'm Carolyn here, Deputy Mayor of Waikato District Council.
Sorry, Carolyn, can you just turn it up? We're struggling
And
just to.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me a bit clearer now if I get my big voice on?
Yep.
Right, okay, fabulous. Look, at the risk of stating the obvious, I'll just introduce self and those that are present in the room with me. Carolyn here, Deputy Mayor of Waikato District Council and current Chair of Policy and Regulatory Committee. Alongside me here today, we have Strategic Initiatives and Partnership Manager, Visal. We have Peter, our roading and planning team leader, and we have Viren, who is our strategic transport planner. So the staff members here today may choose to actually help us out with any questions that you may have.
Good afternoon, team.
I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present our submission today, and obviously take the report as being read. However, I'd just like to note two issues, and as far as Waikato District Council have pushed forwards on our long-term plan, and we're currently out for consultation with a draft enhanced annual plan. The primary reason that we've done this is to investigate how the three waters will be delivered in our district through the local water done well, and consider the implications of Watercare ending its management contract with us on June 26. Also, I'd like to note that we're in the process of formulating our position on the proposed regional rating model for the public transport as contained in the Waikato Regional Council long-term plan consultation document, and we'll formalise our our position in a submission. Just in terms of the content of our submission, we'd just like to reiterate that we support the vision for public transport. It aligns with our own vision of building livable, thriving, connected communities in the objectives outlined in the RLTP. We're supportive of a focus on building network resilience and considering the extreme weather events of 2023 and the need for climate adaptation pathways for long-term implementation, including supporting communities impacted, such as Port Waikato and some of those other more isolated rural communities. We support the refocusing of the sustainable urban and regional development priority and agree with the land transport priorities should be aligned with the growth planning such that Waikato 2070 and future-proof. Whilst we support the policies, we'd like to see an additional measure of success, specifically relating to the regional development and rural communities being considered. Whilst the draft government policy statement on land transport 24 mentions that rail investment in metro rail and networks will be to support the efficient movement of people in Auckland and Wellington, we call for the RLTP to advocate for electrification in Auckland's rail network from Papakura to Pukekohe and to encourage investigation into the next stages of electrification beyond Pukekohe to the northern Waikato communities of Tuatau, Pokeno, as a critical Tuatau, Pokeno, and our other northern communities, and then go as far as complete the connection between Hamilton and Auckland. Continued investment in electrification of this connection between Hamilton and Auckland is a critical contribution for many of the strategic policies set out in this RLTP and will boost economic productivity in the Hamilton to Auckland corridor. The northern Waikato transport connections with Auckland region is of particular interest given the growth, integration and intrinsic linkages between our northern towns of Pokeno, Tuatau and South Auckland. Public transport and transportation in general for the connectivity across the northern regional boundary is a key focus for our interregional transportation planning in our district. We support the regional council initiatives in this challenge. Safety is also a key strategic priority for the Waikato region as a whole, and our council remains supportive of any government and regional initiative to advance road safety whilst ensuring enhanced economic productivity. Waikato District Council supports a fee revenue from traffic offences going to the National Land Transport Fund as a revenue stream for safety improvements, so long as the fund revenue is invested back into the district in which the fees were charged. We support the recognition given to State Highway 1B Telephone Road in the RLTP, which has been planned for pre-implementation, implementation and property phases over the period of 24-25 to 27-28. We support the following sub-regional and regional strategic corridor initiatives. State Highway 2 corridor activities between Pokeno and Tauranga to improve safety outcomes, and also the State Highway 1, State Highway 29 interregional corridor between Auckland, Hamilton and Tauranga, supporting the transport activities and improvement that enhance safety and efficiency on this nationally significant interregional corridor, and support for the delivery of growth initiatives for people and freight. Finally, whilst I acknowledge the GPS on land transport, it fails to give significant consideration to public transport, we seek support from the Waikato Regional Council in advocating for NZTA or Kotahi the importance of a cost share contribution to fund bus services within the Waikato district, which will also help to contribute to economic productivity. We thank you for your time and for the opportunity to speak, and would welcome any questions from the panel.
Well, thank you, Councillor and your team for presenting a thorough submission. Is there any questions from the panel? Eugene.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Carolyn and team. Just a question around like resilience and how we work and how this committee can help with resilience programming with our transport planning going ahead. Is there any comment around that? You have mentioned resilience and in some of our rural networks.
Afternoon. We're working on a resilience plan across our whole network, identifying all our resilience issues. Our plan is we are getting that ready, or when any funding comes available, we want to be ready to go. So we're looking at our key routes, our Wi-Fi routes, how that will be best protected for the future. You know, taking into account these increased weather events, and also associated with climate change.
If I also may note, in addition to that, thank you, Peter. Also, we note that we have many of our communities that actually one road in and out essentially. So that when we speak to our lifeline routes, they're an important consideration to build resilience in those network corridors.
Thank you.
Meilin?
Thank you, Chair. Carol and team, thank you for that. I'm really intrigued to see you identifying what you call lifeline roads and essential to emergency management. Obviously resonates with us as a council. And so it's not so much a question, just a note to say congratulations for that and thank you for specifically highlighting that. And it's something that we probably need to do a bit more work on as a team, just to make sure that we clearly identify those high risk and, as you say, lifeline roads that that need some input probably from emergency management teams. And I'm not convinced that we've done that as thoroughly as we could have. Any further comment that you might want to make on that, I would certainly welcome it. Thank you.
No, well, we look forward to working with Regional Council and submitting a good knowledge of our lifeline routes and how we can support the resilience within those routes.
Well, thank you, Councillor Carolyn, and also your team on your energy and your time to present in front of the panel today.
Thank you.
Right. Team, I think we've got another 5 minutes or 10 minutes before our next presenter from, sorry, LJ? Oh, he might have just arrived. So this is Upper Coromandel branch of the Royal Forest and Bird Protection Society. Good morning, afternoon, sorry, Nick, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
That's
Good
good.
afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity.
So we've got Nick Conlon from the Upper Coromandel branch of the Royal Forest and Bird Protection Society of New Zealand. So thank you for coming in and presenting in front of the panel today.
Thank you. Look, I'll take my submission as read, but I'll probably just highlight a few things and I'll put them in my own words. And if there's time for questions, that would be really great as well. Probably so just in the order that they're here, you'll all be aware what we've had in the sort of the episode of cyclone. So we've had a real example of, I guess, what we've got to look forward to or not look forward to. And so just in terms of what we've seen is there's an opportunity to look at alternate forms of transport. And we think that will look at things like coastal infrastructure, so the ability to get access to the coast and the importance of that moving forward in terms of being able to make that a key part of, I guess, what a arterial route is, where we don't, have the opportunity for the existing roads. The second part of that and linked to it is just looking at the alternatives that there are there now. And obviously there's some paper roads there along the ridge lines, but they might sound grandiose and sort of opportunistic at this time, but we think a truly strategic long-term view will actually start to look at retreating from the coast. And that's where the roads are effectively benched right into the coastline. And there's no two ways to go. You've either got a massive cut to fill or you're filling out into the coast. And that's probably just in terms of vulnerabilities. And this is I guess, a real example of what we see now on the high tide, where we have our toria, which is effectively one of the sort of small coastal birds at the high tide with the basically the rock rubble that's been pushed to expand the road. When the tide comes in, they effectively have to basically line up on the road now on a spring tide. And so there's no new room for them to go. So just looking at, there's options that have been done in other parts of the country around sort of infrastructure islands for birds and things like that. And so, I mean, that's just going to be, I guess, part of costing and planning the capital expenditure for road going forward. And then the other two ones, which you've probably heard other submitters on, just the ability to have a network of sort of electric vehicle infrastructure and obviously public transport. Now, we say that just from a resilience and an efficiency perspective, we've got probably a significantly reduced capacity in our roads when the roading is diverted, the milk tankers and the supermarket filling trucks through our roads. They've effectively, I won't say fallen to bits, but they've had a lot of pressure on them. And just the ability to have the same number of people with fewer vehicles is obviously a good outcome. And the last one there we've just put in is just looking at the ability to have a reduced pressure on the transport system through having enhanced local production. And that's just something else that we've got to think about. So look, happy to answer any questions or speak to clarification as it's appropriate. Yeah, I'm in your
Okay,
hands.
thank you, Nick. Yeah, Kevin.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate your submission. I'm intrigued by your 500-year transport vision, and without going into too much detail, what does that look like?
Well, I guess what I'm hinting at there is there are the posts, those whether they were gazetted in earnest, but they certainly sit there. There's paper roads that run the ridge lines, and I think, you know, whether it's anyone in this room looking at it in the future, but thinking about a much longer term, we cannot continue to, you know, push out into the sea or do a, you know, basically even if it's a 2-to-1 cut into the hillside, you just the volume of material and then the risk and the residual cliff face that you're left with means we have to look. So that's the first key one. The second one is coastal transport. We think that the Coromandel and other parts of the country were developed on coastal transport. There's actually a hub of bays that provide for it at the moment, and it creates a T-link into Auckland, Tauranga, and yeah, coastal shipping, coastal transport. It's going to be a key part of what I guess we'll have to look at. Yeah, just because of the geology. I mean, we've got slipping, unstable geology, and the roads are all down where they shouldn't be, or they're fine where they were, but whether that's a future scenario or not is uncertain at best. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Mayor Len.
Thank you, Nick. Look, good presentation. A lot of thought gone into that. Thank you. I'm not sure I'll be around for the 500-year plan, just to keep an eye on it, but I love the future generational thinking. So thank you. This one's going to come a little bit out of left field, but it's often intrigued me as to what our role is, what our level of input and responsibility can be. If you come out of Thames, go north on the coast road, you go up towards Tararoo, you've got the blue dairy on the right-hand side. Yeah. And just on the left-hand side there, you've got an area where there's a rock wall being built. Yeah. And the black birds with orange beaks, what are they?
They're the toria. They're the ones I was talking about in my submission.
So they're all jammed up on the top of that rock wall.
Yeah.
What do we need? What needs to be there to give them space to live and thrive and cohabitate with humans properly? Because at the moment, every time I drive past, I look at it and I think this isn't right. We're not doing something right here. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that is something we've sort of spoke to in, I guess, in Article 7, where exactly as you described, those rock ripraps that have, you know, balanced and enabled the road against the tide and the waves have shortened at high tide any space for the oyster catchers. And in other parts of the country and globally, there's been things like basically like small like refuge peninsulas built, or there's the equivalent of basically making small refuge islands. And we have to think it's not every high tide, but increasingly it could be more frequent high tides. And so those are, you know, in terms of what people can do, and in the long term, it's going to be probably more and more regions of the coast that are going to be difficult. Well, you'll also notice that the gannets or the kawo that are not the gannets, the kawo with the or the ones that are nesting in, I can't remember the English name right now, the ones that are nesting in all the putakawa trees, they're successively killing off all the pines. And they're part of that coastal bird life as well. And, you know, if we move the roads, we'll either have to cut down those trees or infill where they are. So they're going to be another unfortunate victim of however we plan our transport out. So I think my suggestion is that we look to other regions. I know Auckland's done some. We look to other jurisdictions and other parts of the world where we start to think about the designs that will work. And I mean, I don't know if anyone else other than Len's seen it, but we're talking about a lot of birds. It's not just one or two, it's hundreds and hundreds
And
in that space.
they seem to be really struggling.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, it would appear to be a fairly simple design element. And is it something we need to be thinking about in advance to make sure that we, as we go forward, we do our designs, we build our interventions, that we incorporate these elements?
Look, that's our recommendation, that it's costed into the design, it's costed into the maintenance, and maybe in an adaptive sense, you know, this ability to modify the design by learning as you go.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Nick, for your passion
Yeah.
coming here today and presenting in front of the panel. We appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, team, we seem the next block of presenters is mainly from the Thames Coromandel, and I think they're kind of all coming down with each other. So if we take a break, I hate to say it, but we couldn't, you know, because they're all travelling together, we couldn't get them to come in earlier, but for 40 minutes, because it's 1:40 when TCDC present, and then we've actually got Thames Coromandel, Mercury Bay, Tairua and Pānui, and then Whangamata being the last. So is everyone happy with that? Sorry, Councillor? Yeah, he's got, sorry, I didn't mention that. Yeah, I should have mentioned that right at the beginning. So there was apology. I just got let know that this morning. He's got COVID, so he won't be coming in. Yep, 40 minutes, 1:40 is the next. So if we could just make sure we're back, you know, say 25 to be safe. I presume that most of them are coming down together since they're all from that area. Oh, well. Yeah, you can't bring them in, but yeah. So it's the way hearings go, unfortunately, you know, we've moved a few forward for the morning slots. So yeah. Yeah, we'll hopefully have a straight run through with those because I presume they're, as Len said, they're all here and having lunch, so be able to get them in and out.